you can see the first movie we're going to be talking about is Deadpool versus Wolverine. This is the third. I keep on saying it. Deadpool versus, it's not, it's Deadpool and Wolverine. Even though during a lot of the movie they are at odds, the movie is called Deadpool and Wolverine. It's the third Deadpool movie. I'm getting alerts from my computer for some reason. It's the third Deadpool movie. But this one, it decides to interject Deadpool into the Marvel multiverse. And so the plot takes a very kind of different turn with that and introduces him into kind of the world they set up with the Loki series. And they're starting to connect that to a few of the movies. But really, to understand a lot of the TVA and all this stuff, you need to have some idea of the Marvel series, at least the ones people like. So Loki was pretty good. So fortunately, Loki wasn't a bad Marvel series, but still, a lot of people probably haven't watched that. Fortunately, you don't really have to understand the TVA stuff to enjoy the movie. You don't really have to understand the plot at all, because the movie isn't about the plot. The movie is about Deadpool and Wolverine and special guests cutting it up and doing and saying ridiculous things for 2 hours straight. That's what the movie is. I think that it excels in doing that, but that's what the movie's about. It's not about the story. It's got I think, actually a pretty cool villain, I thought, because that he dug into the comic book crates quite a bit for the movie villain they chose. Not somebody that you would know from either of the X-Men movies. They really found something that I knew about, because I know about the Grant Morrison run of the X-Men. But a lot of people, that's very comic book nerd type territory. They brought her in that villain into the world, and she works really well. So the character work is all really good. But it's probably the most abstract, irreverent of all three of the Deadpool movies. It really just is about every scene hitting and just enjoying all the little moments they give you. It's not really about the story, as it were. And the quicker you realize that when you start watching, the more you'll enjoy it. Or your initial thoughts having watched Deadpool and Wolverine?
I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I think Deadpool is the only one who could get away with kind of that breaking that fourth wall. The guy on the outside looking in, and he's on to get away with that. And they do it pretty well.
Yeah,
and yeah, like you're saying, you got to be a kind of a comic nerd to know Cassandra Nova is. It's kind of strange that they chose that type of villain for this type of movie, but I thought it worked out well.
Mm-hmm. I thought the actress was good too. The one that played her, I think, did a good job of playing Cassandra Nova as well. It's funny because the artist draws her a very kind of extreme look, and they kind of tried to allude to it, but still use a regular human being. They didn't actually go for she had this gigantic head in the comic books. And I think they went for someone that had it kind of had that effect, but she's still a normal human scale kind of skull. So they didn't quite go all the way with that, which is probably the best. Tons of crazy cameos. And the thing about this movie is, if you like the first Deadpool movies, I like to say this sometimes with really good movies, if you like the first two Deadpool movies, or even just the first one, and you liked what you call it, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, just go and watch this. You don't, because we're going to talk a little bit more about what's going on with the movie, and a lot of the fun. I'm so glad I really skipped out on a lot of the press for it. I saw the initial trailers, and that was about it. I didn't see any the later trailers, didn't look for rumors about it, and I'm so glad I did, because I got to witness the surprise of seeing tons of cool cameos, especially some of the other major characters, which we'll talk about in a minute. Some other major characters that make an appearance from previous Marvel movies or previous movies about Marvel characters that you might not expect to see in a modern Deadpool and Wolverine movie, played by the actors that actually, at least in most of their cases, played them once before. Though in one case, it's a complicated story we'll talk about later as to how he ended up playing the character he played. But at this point, if you have not seen Deadpool vs. Wolverine, if you're watching this real time, take 10 minutes, go come back, please. But I want to spoil the surprises for you. Come back and check out the rest of the podcast. If you're watching this after the fact, which most people do, just skip to the next chapter if you haven't seen this yet. It's an excellent movie. It's one of my candidates for movie of the year. I have several in my head. This is on that list. I look forward to buying a copy of it to have in my collection to join the other two Deadpool movies. So it's that kind of movie. So kind of having put that spoiler warning kind of aside at this point, the one person I'm talking about in particular who almost doesn't quite steal the show, but almost does, is Gambit, played by, it's funny because I get the two actors confused a little bit, but it's Channing Tatum. I almost said Taylor Kitsch, who replaced him because he had to be in a G.I. Joe movie. But instead of being in Weapon X, or the Wolverine Origins, I should say. And the number one clip I've seen on Shorts is clips of Gambit's introduction in the some point in the second, early midpoint of the second act of the movie. His character's introduced, and he just kind of steals that scene, despite Ryan Reynolds is playing off him, and Hugh Jackman's doing his thing, but he's incredible. I really do hope they actually. I just found this out. Apparently, in the after credits, we're in Spoilerville now. In the after credits, they were going to have a scene saying Gambit will return, but Marvel was afraid they wouldn't like him, so they took it out. But I think there's a real chance that Gambit might actually Channing Tatum might get his own Gambit movie. I don't think it's likely, but with the Elseworld stuff that they do, there's a chance. So this thing's making like $1 billion. He's a big part of it. If they were smart, they make a Gambit movie. But as to whether or not they'll be smart, who knows? I think that this is almost rejuvenated like the X-Men universe, and now owned by Marvel. Like I almost feel like this world, the Deadpool universe, almost should stay the Deadpool universe, and they should make movies for like X-Men movies. They're not going to do this. I know they're going to have the X-Men probably 616, but I almost feel like they should make for some of these other people. The other person was, of course, Wesley Snipes' Blade. They had Jennifer Gardner come back as Elektra, which is the weirdest cameo to me, or major cameo. Because they're minor cameos or minor. Cassandra's Army is a ton of minor characters from old Fox X-Men movies, just tons of them, just from all different ones. It's crazy. But they even had the dude who played Sabretooth from the first X-Men movie 25 years ago. I don't know. Do you know, was that actually the same actor? Because he looked like the same guy.
Yeah, I think it was Taylor Mane.
Yeah,
Taylor Mane.
Taylor Mane, that's right. Taylor Mane. They went and got Taylor Mane to play it, and they had.
It's funny that I didn't realize that was Pyro.
Yeah, now it's Pyro, who was in the first X-Men.
Later on, like, oh, that's Pyro.
And of course, I love the moment they had with the several moments they had with what's the dude plays Captain America?
Oh my God.
Oh man, whoever he is. Remember, he played the Human Torch in the Fantastic Four movies, and Deadpool sees him, and of course, breaking the fourth wall, he thinks he's Captain America, but of course, no, he's the Fox Universe version of the Human Torch. And it just that's a couple of great moments they played off that, because he was actually my favorite thing about the first. I thought the first Fantastic Four Fox movie wasn't that bad. It wasn't good, but it wasn't horrible, and he was one of the best parts of it. He was good. He was a good Human Torch. But they, but of course the second one I didn't even finish watching. The second one I just stopped watching. That second Fantastic Four movie it was a nightmare. I couldn't get through it, but I actually have a copy of it. I can watch it anytime. I just don't. It's just not worth my time to bother. I did watch the remake they did with Michael B. Jordan and whatever that mess. That was horrible too. But yeah. So I mean, just the cameos are insane. Chris Evans. Thank you. It's actually my favorite of the Chris's, because Chris Evans. There's Chris from plays Guardians of the Galaxy. Chris whatever his name is. There's the three Chris's. All these three white dudes. People say they're kind of similar.
Plays Thor.
Yeah, there's Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, and Chris that plays dude of Guardians of the Galaxy. All three of them. The three Chris's. Chris Evans is actually my favorite as far as when he's in stuff. I like seeing him and stuff. He was in that movie from last month that we talked about, the Iceman movie. About the Iceman, he played another serial killer. He was good. Now he's good in almost everything he's in, man. He was dope. He was in that movie about the Netflix movie that the Russo brothers did. That was just okay, but he was one of the best parts of it. He played the villain in it, and he was good in that. What's that one? It was the one with the dude from the Barbie movie. Played Ken in the Barbie movie. I remember the characters. Terrible with names.
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling, exactly. He played Ryan Gosling's antagonist in that movie, in that Netflix action movie the Russell brothers did. Anyway, so But I mean, honestly, I'm talking about some of his other stuff. This movie's just so good, man. Like almost every scene hits. It's like the only weakness of it is just the fact that the actual emotional arc of the main character played by Deadpool, I didn't think was very good. This whole thing about he spends 2 movies. You know, he spends the first movie getting the girl, the second movie like trying to get her back, and then the third when they take her away again. That was just, I thought that was played out. Like I thought they could have just done something else, and just him going to the 616 universe to join the Avengers. Like, it was a weird first act, and it really, I was like, it took me a while, but once I got past that, I just started having fun, and it didn't matter. And Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, the one he plays in it, has a decent character arc, so it kind of made up for it a bit. But that's what kind of the emotional core of the movie was actually Hugh Jackman's character. The Deadpool storyline was just kind of silly, and it was just best not to think about it too much. That's to me the biggest weakness of this movie is the Deadpool character arc they're trying to go for. It's like, you know, I thought it was just not barely worth the time they spend doing it. And it's funny because they actually barely spend any time on the scene of him breaking up with her, with the and it's like they almost do it in fast forward. It's like a minute long. Like they barely spend it, and it's like key to the thing, and they barely. It's like this, you know, 1 or 2 page scene and screenplay kind of thing. So yeah, it was just not even just half baked in that sense too. So
yeah, they got the Die Hard roller coaster relationship going.
Exactly.
Make up, break up. Like,
exactly. It's like something like it's played out, man. At least for the fourth one, man, he can be dealing with his daughter again at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't do it. We can't do that again. I didn't like that. That was the one thing I didn't like about Die Hard with a Vengeance is, you know, it's because the plot didn't include her. I think that's why they did that. And the director that was his ex-girlfriend, so they kind of wrote her out of the story. They want her in the story, but and it was and honestly, it kind of worked with what he was going for with Sam Jackson. But you know, this thing about him being stubborn. But it was kind of a bummer that he, again, like just like Deadpool, he gets her in the first movie, second movie trying to keep her from dying, and then now you lose her again. Like, and then the fourth one they cemented that he's kind of, his life kind of sucked. Like, you know, if the first 3 movies he's trying to keep his life together, and he's generally a happy guy, and then the fourth one is like, oh yeah, no, all that stuff didn't really work out personally. You know, more estranged from everybody, just a sad loner. You really have to do that. That's one of my kind of cardinal sins of sequels is don't ruin previous movies. When you do that, that's a strike against you a little bit. Sometimes the movie's good enough like this one, it doesn't matter. Or even Die Hard 3 and 4. I still really love those movies. But it's still like, why did you do that? I wish you hadn't done that. You know, that's a cardinal sin for me for movies. Movie sequels, I should say. But yeah, man, this one's a big thumbs up for me. Like, I think everybody should see it in the theater if you like superhero movies at all, and you know, Deadpool movies. If there's any chance you think you would like it, go see it. like if you're watching, like, what is that? And of course not. You know, go watch, you know, 4 Weddings and a Funeral or something. But if you think you would like this movie, then I think you'll like it. Just understand that first act's a little choppy. Yeah. So here's the other thing I wanted to talk about with this, besides the movie itself, which I knew we would both agree on, because I remember you told me first. I was like, you know, just tell me if it's good or not. You're like, yeah, it's good. So I knew we were both going to agree on that. But the other question is, where do we put it? Where do we rank it with the other 2 movies? So we have Deadpool. We got, you know, Deadpool. What was it just called? Deadpool? Was it a funky name like Deadpool 2? Was it called something else? Just called Deadpool 2?
No, just Deadpool 2.
Okay. And then Deadpool and Wolverine. Do you want to start, or should I start? Or just how would you do it? Let me just ask you.
It's kind of tough because I like as a movie, I like the first one the best, but second has a lot more moments to it. Even though the story seemed kind of, and the characters just seemed kind of random. I think there was one miscast in there. I won't get into it, but I think the second one had a few more funny moments.
Interesting.
But I would say maybe the first one, Deadpool, Wolverine, probably Deadpool 2.
Okay. I would agree. I think you're right that there are a couple crazy moments, like the Juggernaut in Deadpool 2 was awesome. Again, like that was them just being comic nerds, man, just like doing stuff like that. And it's funny how Deadpool geeks out on stuff just like we do. Like he's us in the movie, but to the fourth fourth wall extent. I think, it's Juggernaut. I'm a big fan. Anyway, but yeah, I would agree with your ranking. I think the first one to me, just because the story is so well done and it has all the comedy and every scene hits just like this one, that even though this one I think is more in a lot of ways, I think this one's probably the funniest of all of them, has the biggest action moments. Even though I think the first one, the action scenes, the fewer of them are more tightly done. This one has more of the almost like old school, just two kind of reminds you of the video of animated things where the two groups just like both start running at each other. And I think they did that almost like a parody of like the Avengers movies, where both sides just start running at each other. And I think that's kind of fun, but it's also a little bit silly. I thought the first one was a little more grounded as far as that stuff. But yeah, I think the first one's almost perfect. This one I think is excellent, very entertaining, but as I said, has noticeable flaws. And the second one, I thought the same way, that it was good stuff about it, but it had noticeable flaws. But that one, I just wasn't as entertained by, and there are parts of it I just don't like very much. This one, there's not really almost anything besides I think this little bit choppy first act. There's not much I don't like, so I would agree with that. And I think that there are moments in this one I probably do like about as much, because I watched the first two and with my daughter in preparation for this, and I think the highs of this one I think almost do reach for me the highs of the second one, and it has Wolverine in it too. One of my favorite thing about it is when they're all going through the different dimensions looking for the right Wolverine, like and all the deep cuts that they had for that. Like, I really appreciate it as a comic book fan. Like, it was part of it was like almost like a love letter to comic book fans and just fans of the movies and the comics. Like, it's just a movie just geek out to. Like, this is so much fan service, and I could certainly understand someone not liking it as much because the story issues with Deadpool story issues, but it just didn't bother me because I was just enjoying myself too much for it to matter. But it's a flaw there, but it's just too entertaining otherwise. But I watched Deadpool now, the first one, 5 or 6 times, and it just still slaps. This one I've only seen once. I'm looking forward to just owning it. I could go and see it in theater again, but I'm just looking forward to just owning it and watching whenever I want. And after I watch it 3 or 4 times, we'll see if that changes. Because there's some movies that you watch them once and you like them some, you like them more later. Other times you watch them once and repeat viewings, the flaws stick out more than what you like about them. That was true a little bit of the second Deadpool. There's some things about it I don't like that do kind of stick out a bit on rewatching, but there are also some good stuff that is I really appreciate too. So we'll see how this one goes. It's kind of hard to compare for that reason too. We've only seen it once. Thanks for watching this clip from Only the Real Movie Podcast. Please like and consider subscribing to Low Key Classic Movies, and look out for the next episode of Only the Real Movie Podcast coming at the end of every month. Check out a full podcast, or maybe one of these clips, or another video from Low Key Classic Movies.